I'm Peter Brown, and you're listening to Influenced with Jordan Elliott on WRHU.
What if you look your fears right in the eye? Say you'll see them another time.
88.7 FM Radio Hofstra University. You are listening to Influenced with Jordan Elliott. Today, I am so excited to be joined by a multiple award-winning illustrator and New York Times best-selling author, Peter Brown. Peter, most people will know you from your wildly popular Wild Robot book series, which DreamWorks recently adapted into a very, very successful movie. Everyone's going crazy over it. I'm hearing a lot of people calling it the best animated film of 2024. Let's start out with the movie. Are you happy with the adaptation of the story? Are you happy that people are so excited about something based off your work? Let's hear what you think about it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. They made a really special animated movie. I love animation. I used to actually work in animation before I started writing and illustrating books. So I have a bit more familiarity with animation than the average person. And they did something really special. It's visually stunning. The story is really heartwarming, but filled with action and adventure and laughs. Which sounds like every animated movie, but there's something special about this movie. And I think it's the level of heart and soul. It makes people really feel strong emotions. Those feelings that come up in the books really surprise people. I think that's part of the appeal, is that they got a science fiction story that made them cry, and so I was just hoping that DreamWorks would be able to capture that kind of tone and spirit of the story, which I think they did really well. It's not the exact same story. Super fans of the books are quick to point out to me some of the differences, and I think, all things considered, they did a pretty excellent job.
You mentioned that you had some background in animation before you became an illustrator.
Yeah.
I'm a TV production major. I'd love to get in the room for an animated show sometime.
Yeah.
What are some of the productions you worked on?
In college, I went to art school out in Los Angeles. So I was studying a lot of character design, storyboarding. I thought I was going to go into animation. So when I was at Art Center, I had a paid internship at Klaspy Csupo, which is the studio that did Rugrats. And then I moved to New York and I worked at a small animation studio on a show called The Venture Brothers on Cartoon Network, which was part of their Adult Swim lineup. I was actually in the studio working on a background painting when I got an email from a publisher saying I got my first book deal. That's where my background is.
What were you into as a kid? Were there books or movies, TV shows that you were always watching that made you want to go into illustration and art?
Most kids, as soon as you can pick up a crayon, you're drawing pictures and having fun with it, with making some sort of art. I never drifted away from that. Most kids move on to other things, other subjects, and take their interest, which is perfectly natural, of course. But I just always loved drawing. And so when I was growing up, I would draw characters from children's books. I would draw a lot of my own characters. I had fun making them up. It's a kind of a straight line for me. That's not that way for most people, but I guess I got a little lucky. I knew at an early age that I wanted to do something with visual storytelling, and here I am.
I was looking at the cast for the Wild Robot film. There's so many great names here. There are two that stood out to me, being Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal. Star Wars fans obviously know them as the iconic Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian. Are you a big Star Wars guy? I gotta ask, because I feel like I would do anything to get into that room if they were recording lines for something based off of my property.
I'm sure there are people who know much more about Star Wars than I do, but I've watched all the movies many times. Meeting Mark Hamill might have been the highlight of the last few months of my life. I went to the world premiere of the movie at the Toronto International Film Festival. Pedro Pascal was not there, unfortunately. I was bummed not to get to meet him, but I got to meet Mark Hamill, which was kind of a dream come true. And he's such a nice guy, and I had a really great chat with him. I got to meet Catherine O'Hara, who's another one of my favorites. I just love her in the Beetlejuice and so many movies. Best in Show. I mean, she's just incredible. Lupita Nyong'o, who does the voice of Roz, and she's so good. When they first told me that she was going to do the voice of Roz, I didn't immediately think of her as like a voice actor. I have to say, she really did a great job. The early part of the movie, Roz sounds robotic, and we watch as she gradually, or listen as she gradually evolves over the course of the story, sounding a little more and more naturalistic as the story unfolds. And I think she just did an excellent job.
And she kills it. I mean, the whole cast kills it. If you are just tuning in right now, you are listening to 88.7 FM Radio Hofstra University, Influence with Jordan Elliott, and we are here with Peter Brown, creator of The Wild Robot and so many other great children's books. The books and now the movie have been hugely, hugely successful. And the word is that there is a fourth book in the works, possibly. Um, what could you tell us about what's on the horizon for the series moving forward? And how are you celebrating all of the success that comes with it?
My next book that comes out in June is a Wild Robot picture book. The first three books are novels, illustrated, but not graphic novels, novels with some pictures sprinkled throughout. I decided to make a picture book for slightly younger readers in full color, big, beautiful, colorful illustrations to kind of bring Roz's life in full color, detailed illustrations. So that's called The Wild Robot on the Island, which will come out in June. I am also in the very early stages of figuring out a fourth novel in the series. Too early to say what the title will be, but I'm pretty excited about it. These things take a long time, so it'll be a while before the fourth novel comes out. But it is picking up steam.
Seems like there's going to be a lot happening. We're going to see a lot of Roz and the crew
Hmm.
very, very soon. The Wild Robot series has a lot of different animals with human characteristics. Do you base your characters on characteristics of people that you know in real life? Is there a real life version of Fink? Is there someone like that to you?
That happens sometimes with some of my characters where the personality just kind of aligns with somebody I know in the real world. And so that can sometimes make it a little easier to write that character because I can imagine what my friend or family member might do in any given situation. For the Wild Robot books, I can't say there was any clear correlation between a person in my life and any of the actual characters. I like science. I love science. In fact, if I hadn't gotten into a good art school, my backup plan was to go to university and study something like zoology. I wanted to go out in the field and study animals in their natural habitat. And so I bring that kind of love of nature and science to my writing. And a lot of the characters take shape based on real world facts about them. For example, Roz in the book and in the movie, she ends up adopting this orphaned gosling, this baby goose who she names Bright Bill. Geese have instincts that we know about. For example, they fly south for winter. They also imprint, they latch on to whoever is taking care of them. And so I chose a goose specifically for Roz's adopted son. It could have been any animal, I guess, but I chose a goose because of those instincts that real geese have in the real world. I thought if a goose could imprint on a person, maybe a gosling would imprint on a robot. So I took real science to help me build this character, Bright Bill. And then I thought even better, even more interesting, is that they have that instinct to fly south. And so Roz kind of realizes that she has to let her son follow his natural instincts. So they have to say goodbye. And it's sort of a sad moment in the story because they don't know what to expect. They don't know what winter will bring. The journey that he's about to go on, that's some pretty relatable stuff. Parents can relate to having to let their children follow their instincts and leave home. And I love that I could develop a character that we can connect to and relate to, but who also has real kind of science informing the way that he lives his life. Like Bright Bill is the perfect example for that. So that's kind of the attitude I bring to all the different animal characters.
Moving away from The Wild Robot for a second, I want to talk about one of your other books. It actually gained some attention in the press. The name of the book is Fred Gets Dressed. It's about a little boy who runs around his house naked and eventually he tries on his parents' clothes. I read that there is a Kansas library that considered banning the book. I gotta know how you reacted to this.
This is a book. Fred Gets Dressed is a picture book based on an experience I had when I was a little boy. Like most little kids,
Yeah.
sometimes you're naked, right? You run around the house and your buns are out and it's all good and it's just what kids do. It's not a big deal. I just thought that was such a sweet, fun, relatable experience. And then I had this other moment in my life where I was sneaking around the house and I got into my mom's stuff and I started playing around with her makeup and her jewelry. And so she found me trying to put on makeup and I didn't do a very good job, of course. And my mom's reaction wasn't to say that boys don't wear makeup. Her reaction was to clean off my face and show me how she puts on makeup the right way. Why not have this be a teachable moment, I guess, was her attitude. I thought that was a pretty cool reaction from her. So I decided to kind of combine those moments into one story about a boy named Fred who runs around the house naked until he goes and sneaks into his parents' closet and he tries on his dad's clothes. But everything's kind of big and ties are hard to tie. And then he turns around and looks at his mom's stuff and it's more colorful and there are more textures and patterns and a little more interesting. And so he just starts trying on his mom's stuff and then his parents find him and then they all have fun kind of getting all dressed up together. It's a pretty sweet, innocent story, but unfortunately in the world we live in these days, a lot of people think it's inappropriate, I guess, for boys to dress up like their moms. I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal. And I think probably you're more likely to like get through that experience if you just show your son some love in that moment and not a whole lot of judgment. As soon as something becomes off limits, kids become a whole lot more curious about it. So I worry that all these parents who are so outraged that I would make a book about a boy who dresses up like his mom, I worry that they're they're going to be inadvertently creating a whole lot of interest for their own boys dressing up like their moms. So it's hard to keep up these days. There's so many book bans challenges happening all over the place all the time. People are really just trying to crack down on books. And it's really upsetting and sad to me that people would have that attitude. Every education and child psychology expert agrees that, kids can handle books, and to cut them off from a whole line of thinking is really to close them off to a whole slice of life, which, might be important to them. It's upsetting, but not shocking.
That's how you got to look at it. Hopefully, a lot of other people were able to read that book with their kids and find the wholesomeness and all of that. I usually like to ask my guests if they'd like to leave the students of Hofstra and the listeners of Influence with any words of wisdom, anything you'd like to share with us.
It's a strange time in the world, and I grew up the son of a teacher and a scientist, and they really valued education and science and facts and truth. And I think we gotta try a little harder than maybe we want to find truth and to resist misinformation. Misinformation is doing a whole lot of damage these days. So students in college right now at Hofstra or any college are in a great place to kind of enter the workforce and get out of college and start their professional lives aware of the damage misinformation is doing, and with your kind of guard up and prepared to dig a little deeper than maybe you would have otherwise, and to find the actual truth of what's actually happening in the world, and not to get too upset by all the nonsense that's out there, because most of it isn't based in reality. We got to focus our energy on what's real, as far as I'm concerned.
I couldn't have said it better myself. The amazing Peter Brown, everyone. Go check out The Wild Robot, both the movie and the book series, and check out everything else that this man is doing. 88.7 FM Radio Hofstra University. This has been Influence with Jordan Elliott. I will see you next time.